This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire.
Men, women, angels, and embers, welcome to Burning Questions. Tonight, we'll be diving deep into the lore of the pretty fly, Starlight. So, good evening, Starlight. Would you kindly introduce yourself and what you do?
Basically, I am a celestial fox spirit, and my main thing is I do art, and I want to try to combine art and magic together, and other people how to do the same.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Where can we find you if you want to like watch more of these art stuff?
I stream on both Twitch and YouTube at Audrey Starlight. That name may change in the future, but for now, that's where you can find me pretty much everywhere.
Okay, perfect. Well, for the chat, in case you guys want to see more of her stuff, I will link her right below. Anyway,
Thank you.
so what do you think we're gonna do today with this whole show? What do you expect we're gonna do?
I'm hoping I'm able to tell my story a bit.
Well, would you like to give like a short introduction to your lore for the people who don't know?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, I'm a celestial spirit. I'm sort of a star spirit of sorts. I fell from the celestial realm from an unknown force, and I kind of landed in a world with animals that you might be familiar with, who were walking and talking, but absolutely detested anything magic related. And clearly, with my stars and auroras and how I appear, I really wasn't the most looked favorably upon. I was alright because I could do art, but anything related to magic was feared and banned in this world. I tried to do a bit of magic in secret, while I was also showing my art in public. Some of the art that I did had some magic forms in it that were a little bit... people were very wary of. I didn't feel quite at home there. At some point, I came across a spellbook I probably wasn't supposed to find, considering that magic was basically forbidden everywhere. I ended up finding streaming for a bit, and I felt that I could use that to show other people how art and magic work together. At one point, I got a little bit carried away, and I tried to combine two things at once. The balance was off, and I ended up a little bit stuck, let's say. Some spells went wrong. I was eventually saved by a snow angel, thank goodness. And I learned that balance is very important. I worked with some other spirits, namely a spirit of crystal and a spirit of ice, and I'm working together with them to sort of find that balance in things and teach it to others.
Okay, I see that. Well, that's some very interesting lore. I don't think I've heard like a lot about. Well, I've heard a lot about dimensional traveling, but yours is very interesting as you don't really come from a direct place, I should say.
It's mainly the celestial, the astral, where most of the magical things that you guys consider fantasy would be from. But I ended up in a world where all of that was very much looked down upon.
So kind of interesting, like the way how some humans perceive like magic as being this fantastical thing can also be something that's detestable in other cultures, which I do find interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much forbidden to talk about, discuss, allude to. I don't think that the spellbook I found was supposed to be there. But essentially, being a fox with wings, I'm basically considered a chimera of sorts, an unnatural being, and everybody in that world was very typical looking. Basically everything that you have in Terra, but walking and talking and seeing themselves as special for it.
Okay, I see. They are, they are just anthropomorphized beings. By human
Yes,
standards, of
but
course.
by human standards, but no, no, how would I say I don't want to say unnatural, that seems a bit harsh.
Yeah.
No unnatural colors, and no combinations, no lizards with wings, for instance.
Yeah, so basically,
Or
yeah, no
foxes.
dragons. No foxes with
Yeah.
wings. Okay. Well, without further ado, would you like to start with the first burning question?
I'm very excited and curious what you have planned.
Okay, so first question. So you said that you eventually landed on a world composed of similar beings to you who loathed magic, chimeras, and unnatural fur colors. Surely before that you discovered other worlds, right? What kinds of worlds did you find, and was this particular world filled with the anthropomorphized beings something something you already had your eyes on?
Basically, I never meant to be there. I'm from the astral planes as a loose term.
Mm-hmm.
The celestial realms, which has connections to plenty of other worlds and universes and dimensions. I was struck down essentially from that place, and I probably would not have made it to the ground. Let's say my wings were not in had not been fully awakened, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But those spirits essentially saved me, brought me there safely, and kind of gave me this role as a sort of guardian mage to work with the stars and the lights and creativity as a whole. But because I came from the celestial to this strange world of anthropomorphic creatures, there was a very large disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen other worlds, I have seen other creatures, and I think that's part of why so much of it is in the work that I do, in the artwork that I do.
Okay, I see that. That makes plenty of sense. So you just ended up accidentally landing on this world that has similar beings, like anthropomorphized, or because you were struck down, right?
I
Or
was
were you
struck
taken there
down
by
by
the
a mysterious
spirits?
force.
Or were you taken there to that specific world, like free of your own will, I should say. Even though that sounds kind of wrong.
No, basically falling into that world, not being very welcome, and sort of feeling like I knew I really didn't belong there,
Okay.
and trying to find a way out. So when I found that spell book, I was trying a lot of things out in secret. I was seeing how it worked with my paintings and my sculptures. I
Yeah.
started getting a little bit more into it, working on some more advanced spells, eventually opening, a sort of, portal sounds so cliche.
But it basically is a
essentially
portal.
Sorry?
Like a wormhole or something of a wormhole or a
Of
pathway.
sorts, yes. And basically, found these other creatures who wanted to entertain and essentially stream. I came to learn that these are also VTubers,
Mhm.
but they were so much more interesting. They were much more, they were much closer to the celestial realm. They're much closer to the astral. Demons and orcs and dragons and fairies and all these kind of things that you hear in stories in Terra, but all of which I think would have made the animals in that other world very, very afraid.
Fair enough. That would probably like, well, if they probably imagine, if they probably don't like, if they don't like someone like you, what would they think of someone like me? Wherein my head is literally it looks like it's on fire, and I already freak out some humans out. At least you have a
Yeah.
more cuddly features. I'm surely they would probably freak out seeing that I don't have a natural arm, but that's just the culture. That's just a culture shock, basically, right?
Yeah. And I don't think they've ever seen anything close to humans, so I think that would be the biggest shock, frankly.
Fair enough. That sounds about right, honestly. Okay, wait. Just to be clear, where are you staying right now? You're not on Terra, and you're also not on this world, right? Not on that world with the uh anthropomorphic creatures?
Oh, I sometimes visit Terra from time to time. I'm sort of in a more liminal space. I'm basically in a sacred forest, and I have a home on the top of a mountain, essentially, where I can overlook the aurora and the stars, and communicate a bit with those spirits.
Okay, so you're in what some people would say is a type of pocket dimension?
I suppose that would be one way to put it.
Okay, then that makes sense. Yeah, I've heard about like those things existing for people in my world. It's just like a bit more difficult to acquire because it's a bit pricey, and everything costs money in my world. Well, I guess most worlds does. Regardless.
Yeah, I'm pretty much. Oh, sorry.
No, just what were you saying?
I'm pretty much isolated from other creatures. I've got my sacred forest, I've got my artwork, I've got the ability to teach people, and that's really what I need.
That makes sense. A lot. That is what a lot of people need anyway. Okay, moving on. Next question we have is: while traveling the cosmos, you have probably, how should I say this? You have probably met some interesting races, huh? Are there a few like species or races that has caught your eye, like more than these anthropomorphic creatures?
Interesting question. I have noticed that there are a lot of creatures that people would seem to, as a catch-all, call dragons, but they all seem to have a huge amount of variety. It seems like that alone is an entire species within a species. There's so many varieties of creatures. Elves have always been very interesting. I might feel a little bit akin to fairies, both having the wings and such.
Oh yeah, that
I
makes
try to
sense.
stay away from any of the creatures who are a bit more, let's say, harder to communicate with.
It's probably not a good idea to say that they're unintelligent. They just have
Oh no,
different
definitely
type.
not unintelligent. Definitely not unintelligent. I just know which would probably be more on the friendly side, and the ones who
hostile.
want
Okay, I
to
see.
take over things, and I don't need to get into that.
Okay, that makes plenty of sense. There are some species out there that would quote unquote have you for dinner, but we will those are probably like some creatures that have their reasons and just have their own culture thing. But well, I suppose
Sure,
that
they
is
do.
their thing.
I just don't want to get into those affairs.
Yeah, true. There are some terrifying creatures. I'm pretty sure I've discovered like some of them just hiding amongst humans. Well, both
That
from
honestly wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I work with illusion magic myself, but it does seem that some of the more frightening creatures are very, very, very good at illusion work.
well, in one way or another. So I've seen some that use a type of mimicry, like it's
Oh.
just their biology that changes to mimic something that's more pleasing to humans, I should say.
Ah, that's quite interesting.
Well, one of those that I find one of those one I know how should I say this? One of those that I've discovered is Juniper actius. Do you know that this VTuber?
If I recall, I believe they are some form of moth creature?
Exactly. They are a moth, but they have multiple forms that they use their biology to take care of. One is, of course, the one that most humans know well, but people tend to forget that she is also a type of eldritch being who can, will, and has devoured some humans.
Oh my.
Be it willingly or
wow.
unwillingly.
Willingly.
There are some weird ass people online on the Terran internet.
I'm not sure. Okay, all right, that's fair.
That's just how humans are. Well, I suppose there are That's just how people are, generally speaking. I've seen some weird ass VTubers, and Twitter is just composed of most of them.
To each their own, I suppose.
To each your own, exactly. Well, regardless, moving on. About a few weeks ago, I had a Waifu's Weekly episode that talked about bird people. And seeing
Yes.
how you have wings, I was wondering if do you have similar rituals wherein you care for your feathers? Like brushing or anti-parasitic ointments, something similar to that?
You don't have to worry about any parasites of sorts being more spiritual than physical, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But I do brush my feathers from time to time.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you partake in what I've discovered that I still find a bit strange is that some bird creatures don't like to get their feathers wet naturally, but they take part in a how should I say this? Um, dirt bath. They no not dirt. They use sand to draw out the moisture from their wings as to better care for them.
I don't
Do you do
think
something
that's
similar to
anything
that?
I've had to deal with.
Fair enough, fair enough. So you just partake in the classic standard brushing, basically?
Yeah, basically, it can get a bit tiring after flying, so cleaning that up a bit, but nothing that has to deal with any of the physical dirt, grime, water.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that that is a thing that okay, how if not your feathers, do you do something with your fur that would do such a thing?
No, it's pretty much all spiritual. So I have warmth, I have soft fur, but nothing that I really need to work to maintain much, which is nice. It's a nice perk, but on the other hand, it does feel a bit strange when you come across a creature that can look a bit similar to you, but you know is not the same.
Okay, yeah. I suppose that was probably your feeling, like going to that one dimension with the anthropomorphic creatures, huh? That you look similar to like some of the fox anthropomorphs, but you have a different fur color and you of course have wings.
Yes. Definitely standing out in a crowd, that's for sure.
Ah, just like most animes, it seems.
Oh no!
Well, it is true though. If you probably put yourself in like a crowd full of other anthropomorphs, we would
I mean,
probably see
that's
who's the
fair,
anime
yes.
protagonist.
I mean, in that world, yes. I feel in other worlds I might not stand out as much, but yeah, I'm pretty much akin to what with anime you would most likely associate as a Mary Sue type.
Well, not necessarily, but somebody that does stand out like way too much. Well, well, at least you at least how to say this? You stand out among like other VTubers online because most of them are well like me, which are more humanoid. But everyone tries their own shtick, I should say, like a way to make themselves look more unique, right? But
That's fair.
your thing is well very recognizable. You have a color palette that admittedly a lot of people have, but that's just standard. But it's just your whole design, the way you look is more. I lost my train of thought. I mean,
No
the way
worries.
you look is unique. Basically, that's all I want to say. Like compared to
That's
other
fair.
VTubers.
Yeah, I definitely think that and I'm one of the few who take on a bit more of a animalistic appearance.
Yeah, definitely. But But you're definitely not alone. Do you know anyone else that you might want to shout out that has a similar look? Somebody that's perhaps anthropomorphic also?
Yeah, I'm actually very, I would say very good content creator friends with a certain, swamp-based lizard.
Ah, yes, Thorntail, of course.
Yes.
We'll
And I
have
think that sometimes we've been able to laugh at the same things. For example, I like to try and create clothing and accessories for people, and we both discovered that we both sometimes have trouble wearing those things because of our large snouts and such.
Oh, that I think that's a problem. That's a problem for many species. Uh, one of those people that I did discuss with in a Waifu's Weekly episode is Zeno. She has massive antlers. So
Ah,
putting on a
oh
shirt
boy.
is all but impossible for her, if not for her magic, of
I can
course.
imagine, yeah.
If
It's
you're having
frustrating.
yeah, if you're having an issue with your snout, creatures with their horns must have an absolute pain just getting ready for the morning.
Yeah. Yeah,
It,
absolutely. I definitely would not want to deal with horns myself.
well, that's just a price to pay for something that looks amazing, of course, along
That
with some
is very
maintenance.
fair. That is absolutely fair.
Well, regardless, let's move on to the next question. What kind of art did you do on the other world? What's the type of art that they had? I mean, what type of art did they have in the other world? And did you make something similar to theirs? And do you have something that is similar to theirs? And also,
Well,
was their art similar to what you'd find on Terra?
I would say that there is a lot of similarities between that art and Terra. There are honestly a lot of similarities between Terra and that world in most cases, aside from the walking, talking animals.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the work that they did, I would say, would be very, very classic, very not very. How there's no other good way to say it other than not very imaginative. Frankly, everything was pretty basic, bare bones, very dry, and trying to insert some things that may not have been the most highly regarded. Trying to put in things like otherworldly creatures or symbols that they might not be familiar with, or colors that they might not actually see in that realm were not the most appreciated.
Okay, like, is there a thing? Is there a type of art on Terra that would probably be as close to what you're describing? Like perhaps a timeline, like let's say in older Victorians or something that's akin to Gothic or neoclassical, of course.
Say that a lot of it was very, very Renaissance based, very just drawing fruit, drawing portraits, drawing landscapes. Very. I would say that Renaissance would probably be the closest equivalent, and
Okay, I see.
certainly a lot of paintings of royalty and leaders and such.
Ah, okay, so
So
it's
trying
very
to throw
yeah.
in something, trying to throw in something that was not regarded anywhere to that, not the best experiences.
What kind of art did you do to perhaps complement or contrast these artworks?
So I can do art that falls in line with what they want. I can do things such as the still lives and the landscapes and the royal portraits.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always try to do things a bit in my own way. I would add some different colors that might not be there, or um, experimental things, adding in beings that wouldn't be found there. And then, of course, I was practicing a bit of magic on the side, so if I tried to make my life easier, such as making my still life levitate a bit to get a closer look at it, that was very frowned upon.
Okay, that probably that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so wait, from what? Okay, I see. I think I see what you mean. But I think I see what you mean. I have like some minor knowledge when it comes to the history of art in this world, and most each generation of art I've seen has seen a type of counter culture with the art that was produced in the previous generation. One example of this that I recall is classical and of course neoclassical. So from what I understand, you were doing basically what humans have been doing for quite a while, which is I actually find kind of surprising, like from a historical point of view, because um, if I recall correctly, classical I could be wrong about this, but I do recall that we have for okay wait the one I can think of the most is classical and neoclassical, wherein classical was mostly based on what you said earlier, which is the placing placing of like figures and events, those kinds of things, like where people would spend days just painting a historical event like a battle. Neoclassical would spend days just painting things like a landscape, just to appreciate what beauty the landscape has and not trying to use it as a form of recording. So the way you describe your like what you've been doing is, from my opinion, is similar to that. Just going against the grain to show a new form of art that people can appreciate, that any person can appreciate, at least in a certain extent. But question is
Um,
that did doing this thing actually, like, was this appreciated by the species you were working for?
Going against was going against the grain appreciated? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
basically, yeah.
No, no, no. Definitely not. There were a lot of rules and constraints and such, and I was allowed to pursue art. There was nothing wrong with that. But the themes that I used were highly frowned upon or made people suspicious, and because these people feared magic and it was banished and such, they really didn't know what to think about it. A lot of the things that I added to it uh, sort of made them fear my work and fear me. Essentially, the equivalent of someone trying to paint language that no one could read and then throwing that into a museum. Everyone is a little bit curious, but a little bit terrified.
Okay, that actually sounds like a very good analogy from how the way you described it. There, it's a classic thing that people just fear things they don't understand, but that's just normal
Yeah,
for any species.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think that there is something going on with some of the leaders in that world. I
Mm-hmm.
think they seem to be hiding a bit more than they let on that they know.
Ah, interesting. But that's just for us and the viewers to speculate on, isn't it?
For now, I might try to look into it. Most of the archives are forbidden, but someday I might try and sneak a peek.
Fair. Well, that seems very similar to what Ja has been doing. So surely, if she can do it with against dragons, you can use it with your magic against some less than magical beings. Well, we can't deny magic as a great weapon.
That is fair. It wouldn't surprise me if that is part of the fear that people have. It is very powerful. I'm definitely not as powerful as some other creatures. There definitely is a side of magic to be feared. I can't deny that.
Yeah, yeah. You are speaking to a guy who spoke with a goddess and a world-ending dragon for the past 2 weeks. So I know I know what you're talking about.
Well, I have not ended any worlds, and I will, let's hope it stays that way. I have no intention of doing
For the
so.
foreseeable future. Well, well, let's move on to the next question. If you remember, what was your first magical artwork that you've done, and some do you still have it, and can you probably showcase it in the near future?
first piece of magical artwork I've done. I'm not sure if that's something that I would have access to anymore. But again, I think it is a form of chimera-type creature. I think it must have been, what I would say would be the typical form of a unicorn of sorts. But I'm not sure if I still have that. I do have an affinity with those types of creatures. The crystal spirit that I follow is very close to that form.
Okay, I see. Okay, so it's like a type of, well, I don't think I should say that. Type of portrait perhaps of this creature.
Yes, I would say so. Or maybe something that I'm trying to pull from memory. It's a bit hard to say. I don't think it's of any certain creature.
Okay, that's fair. You do seem to have created like plenty of artwork like over the years.
Yes, very
Who
much so.
who can remember their first artwork, right? Well, anyway, do you still have this one book of spells, and could other beings be able to use this magic, such as myself, because a lot of people don't understand that I actually can also use magic.
I do still have it, yes. I've been keeping it with me very close because I feel that at some point it might be trying to get taken away from me. I keep it very close on me at all times. I do use it in my work regularly. And actually, when I present my work in a stream that other people can watch, I do have it with me. I just have a... what's the word? Not a cloak, but I do have sort of a cover over it. And then eventually I think I will get to the point where I can be a bit more open about having it. But it is on me at all times.
Okay, so you basically just use it regularly. Well, that's good.
Absolutely. And if you wanted to learn from it, I could absolutely show you. I think that you would probably be more receptive to it than many others.
Oh, why do you say so?
I think that you're more open to the ideas of magic and spell work, and so much of it has to do with sort of accepting the unknown.
Well, well, to be fair, accepting the unknown is the whole reason why I made this show, my shows generally. A lot of people a lot of people do want to know and should like learn people's histories. They don't understand it at first, but this show is what I do to help simplify it for some people.
Yeah, and I really like that. I think that it's really nice that people can sort of tell a story that they might not normally get a chance to. I really enjoy that.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad. Like a lot of people are slowly like watching my shows and learning more about these people they love watching online.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that people should subscribe or follow some of these current endeavors so that they can keep up to this?
Definitely. So if the viewers did hear this, subscribe, follow me on Twitter if you want. And of course, I'll be having more people on the show in the near future. But while you're still here, let's move on to the next question.
All right.
What does you stated before that you were given the role of guardian of the Aurora. Do you literally protect the cosmos from outward threats? What does the Guardian of the Aurora actually entail?
It's not so much outward threats as it is more the essence of magic in these other worlds. That sounds bigger than it is, frankly. A lot of it is mainly communication and making sure that things don't go wrong. In Terra, it does seem that the Aurora plays a big part with some other planets, so sort of keeping that all in line and making sure that everything runs smoothly, and also making sure that I can sort of keep up that source of inspiration for others. I mean, of course, there is an artist in Terra who has made, I believe, a very famous painting using their appreciation and inspiration of the cosmos swirling in the sky.
I think I know who you're talking about, but his name is escaping me right now. Was that the person that they claimed he cut off his own ear?
Yes, indeed. Vincent van Gogh and the
There
Starlight.
it
And I
is.
think
Yeah.
that I'm not sure how exactly that story goes in detail, but I think that there's a lot to be said about different creatures and different species sort of getting so much from the world and the space around them, whether it's the forest or the oceans, or I know that you're not too fond of your own world, but there is something to be said for the beauty of fire. Absolutely.
Well, I do really appreciate the beauty of fire. I just don't appreciate the world I'm in, but that's just a whole other thing that people will eventually learn more about.
That is very fair. And I do have a question for you in regards to those elements. Do you ever find yourself seeing colors in it that others normally overlook?
Like, what do you mean by colors? Do you mean like the beauty of something that people don't really appreciate as much?
Yeah, I think that with a lot of elementals, I think that there is sort of appear in their true vibrancy more than most people bother to take a considerate look at.
Yes, definitely, because this is how should I say this in a way that non-fire elementals can understand? A lot of throughout history of many cultures, both Terran and non-Terran. Well, I'm speaking from non-fire elementals. Fire has been used as a type of weapon. It has been used as a weapon of war, has been used as a way to hurt others, and also from accidents, which is why fire is loathed and is seen to be a bad thing, especially when there were some how should I say this, world jumpers from Terra that discovered the fire world and decided to name it as an unbearable. It's kind of funny the word I'm going to use, hellscape. But
Oh dear.
yeah, they see it as a type of place that no creature should ever want to live in. But there are creatures that live in places that there aren't supposed to be things living there. The bottom of a sea, the inside of a volcano, there are creatures that can live through there. I know them, the snails. Those snails are actually from my world, but I don't want to dive deep into that. But that's the thing. Fire isn't only a weapon, it's also a type of. It's not exactly a creature, but it is something that devours the same way a creature normally does. So the one aspect a lot of people don't understand is fire is something that is this is gonna sound very cliche. Fire is life, essentially.
Well, in a
People
quite
don't-
literal sense for many creatures.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like from me, fire is something that, well, if you actually look into, for example, a nuclear factory, plasma, not nuclear power plant. That's the term. A nuclear power plant is essentially a gigantic steam engine that is used to generate heat. But the thing is that energy is essentially just very supercharged fire. The sun is a gigantic ball of fire. Stars are balls of fire. It's just that we don't really observe these things. So, well, that's actually interesting connection between yourself and I. If you think about it,
It's true.
stars and celestial elements are just balls of fire that, from people on the ground's point of view, are just small worlds of fire, and people don't understand this.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's one for you that I'm not sure if you were aware of.
Yes.
Did you know that in some cultures in Terra, the Aurora Borealis is called foxfire?
Huh. Well, that is actually very interesting. Didn't know that.
Yes, there's plenty of legends that they tell, and I also have the same abilities. But the foxes without wings, and it doesn't really matter wings or no wings.
Mm-hmm.
There are many spiritual foxes who are said to be able to flick the snow and with their tail as they run through the forest, and the sparks that come from the flick of their tail and the snow fly into the sky and sort of help form the aurora. Now, of course, I'm working a bit with that on a different end, but I would say that I do work with my tail a bit to sort of essentially paint the night sky, if you will.
Well, I suppose that is quite literally to some person's point of view because you are an artist. So.
And my wings are just a good physical representation of it.
Okay, this gonna sound really strange, but I've slowly started like seeing the perspectives of other elementals as for a while now. I've been learning the histories and the science behind some formations around Terra. Well, I suppose every universe because that's just how it works. But for one example is I somehow watched a type of documentary and read a couple books on this about geology. Oh, sorry.
All right.
Excuse me.
All right.
I read some books about geology, and I started learning about the certain stones, and I slowly started appreciating like how these stones form themselves. Okay, let's see. If you get a certain rock, just you get a big boulder and you shatter it. You place its pieces into a river. Over time, those sharp rocks will slowly become smooth, and that's the reason why lake rocks are actually the most sought after in terms of gravel and in terms of construction because they are smooth, and that's actually like
Power
very
of that water sort of forming
exactly
it over time.
exactly, and people don't appreciate that. Like let's say hundreds of years ago, these things were probably as jagged as a broken glass, but
Yeah.
over time it just started becoming smooth and started becoming more friendly. Friendly to a touch at least. I had the same point of view when it comes to I don't recall the name of the place, but there was this one you can see it in some cliff faces. Because cliff faces form after like there's been an incident or like a landslide or a earthquake where there's basically a big crack in the ground, right?
True.
Depending if you see from a full cliff face, you can see the different layers of earth, and somehow that's just kind of beautiful for me, just seeing on how old this thing and like its potential experiences. Just imagining all of the creatures that probably have been on each layer, just seeing on how they exist and how they probably thrive life. Yeah, these are the things.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
To sort of think about what is walked on each point in time.
Exactly. One okay. Well, these things are separated by millions of years. Those aren't just hundreds or thousands. Those are millions of years. So that's actually how I've seen a lot of fossils are discovered on Terra. They look for the lowest possible layer, then from there they just start digging or start excavating at least, or they just just look for like cracks in the ground. If you look to your right, if you look like on the sides, you're gonna see all the different layers and probably even see the different fossils. So that's how some of them are discovered. I've seen plenty of geology videos on YouTube wherein a guy just goes to a riverbed, collects some rocks and cracks them open with a hammer, and there's a freaking fossil in there. It's just the beauty of the ages that people I don't think appreciate that much.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think that there's a lot of beauty on Terra and in other dimensions that is sadly overlooked. it's funny that you mentioned the breaking of the rock and finding fossils. I've also done some bit of excavation work myself.
Oh.
I have a big affinity with rocks and crystals as well. I always have. I've explored to many different parts of the Terran world to discover many different forms of rocks and forms of crystal, and the part of the crystal involved in light play is actually a huge part of my being, of my inspiration, and the work that I create.
Light play? What do you mean by light play? That sounds interesting.
So, remember when I asked you, do you see any other colors in fire that I don't think others pay attention to?
Yeah, yeah. I see what, yeah. What about it?
I think there are certain ways that you look at things. I think that certain ways of observation brings about more color and light and iridescence than people normally take the time to consider. For example, my claws are quite literally made of a form of moonstone, and there are these flashes of vibrant cyans and purples and even a magenta sometimes that I think a lot of people don't take the time to play around with looking at. I think they see things from a very face value and sort of call it there, but if you pay attention to so many of these stones and crystals in our world, they have so many different things to show you.
Okay, I see. Well, that is a very good example. Well, what's being used on Terra a lot that I've noticed is, okay, a lot of people here know Nirvana, obviously. They've seen like that one cover art of the prism. That prism wherein white light enters and it just spreads out to a rainbow is probably what you're seeing. Similarly, at least something similar to that.
Yes, exactly. And I think there are many people who don't bother to consider the beauty in that, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay. A way to describe this that people who don't really appreciate like the way we do is you get one thing that's very plain. Let's say a pyramid made of glass. You show it to someone, oh, it's just a glass pyramid. You show someone a light bulb. It's just a light bulb. It shoots out white light. Thing is, you combine those things to form something beautiful. That concept alone is it's just very, very. Okay, we've said the word beautiful way too much, but it is very aesthetically pleasing.
But yes, exactly. And I think that there is a part of that that is sort of that combination with art and magic that I mentioned before. Sort of finding that magic in a natural world, whether that be Terra or any other world or dimension that you're from, and then combining that with the beauty that you're able to create and that you're able to put into a tangible form to show others.
Yeah, definitely. There's probably like some people who has some other dimensional hoppers like yourself, dimensional hoppers like yourself and others like Zeno who probably have used these types of strategies in other ways that they mix in with something they find on Terra. That is something that a lot of cultures has done that I really do enjoy. One of those things I'd like to point out is, of course, anime. The art of animating pictures is a Western product, but it was brought to the Japanese side and they've created anime from that. And just seeing how they take the technology of one place but add it to something from their own place is just something that people should try doing more often. Even though I know it is done very often, I just think it's something that people can learn from, basically.
And learn from others, absolutely. I think for me, one of the most incredible things about an anime style is that there's such a I don't want to say commonplace, but there's such a it seems more likely than not that any work in that style is going to consist of colors that are more vibrant and more exaggerated than those that people would normally see in the world. And I think it's that enhancement and of the vibrancy and the beauty that is something I can definitely relate to and feel close to. It's sort of that idea of bringing those things that people can't see or may not pay attention to, as we recently discussed,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
turning that into that tangible form.
Okay, this is gonna sound slightly out of the blue, but has
No
any
pun intended
has
there?
yes, no pun intended. But um have you seen the anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventures?
I have not. I have seen the art style many times. And
Okay.
ironically, I do have a project in which I am going to need to recreate that style for a bit.
Okay, that is well. Okay, well, regard close enough. That's enough knowledge you need.
But
But
anyways, I have seen it. I
okay,
have
cool.
not seen it, sorry.
Oh, you haven't seen. Okay. Well, anyway, in season 2, in Stardust Crusaders, in many scenes that get really intense, the art style doesn't shift. It's just a color palette that does. But it does it in such a way that you still know which color is supposed to be which. It's not. It's done in such a way wherein they change the hue of the scene, and just seeing like some of the characters go from a normal human skin tone to just straight up green, and their hair colors shift to blue or something, as if it was previously like red. I just find that rather interesting how they just shift the color palettes like from one place to another in such a way that is done very aesthetically, but also done in a way that somehow is very pleasing to the eye.
They're
Sadly,
using, oh, sorry.
sorry, sadly that this effect has kind of been lowered over time, but just seeing how they use color very creatively to express the thoughts of somebody or the intensity of a scene is just rather unique to me. But what were you saying earlier?
I was just saying, basically, green, it seems like they're using the different hues to sort of sway the emotion stronger and make that a more
Yeah,
powerful feeling.
yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
It's just sad that this effect was lowered in the later seasons, but it's still a very interesting sight, especially when you first see it and you don't realize that that's what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. And I do really love how there are many forms of media that, well, a little bit rarer to find, sort of try to go the extra mile sometimes in the way that they do play with color to emphasize the feelings of scenes. I know that in many art schools, mine included, there are studies of that. There are people who go through scenes in movies and shows, and they say, how is the color playing with how the audience is interacting to the scene? How can it be pushed?
Definitely. One of those things one of the movies that I actually distinctly remember is a somewhat recent movie called John Wick. If you've seen that action movie, starring Keanu Reeves,
I
of course.
I have heard of it. I think it might be a little too dark for what I normally would watch.
Fair enough. But then again, you watch things like RE0, so
Well, you know what? If John Wick was available in an anime, maybe that would be different. I think that it can be a little bit easier to take than something that can be very realistic. I can at least see that something is
fair
drawn
enough, fair enough.
and maybe exaggerated. Very
Okay,
different than seeing something so visceral.
fair enough. That actually sounds like a really good idea of making a John Wick movie. I mean, a John Wick anime. But anyway,
I might watch it if that becomes a thing.
fair enough. Anyway, in the movie John Wick, there's actually 4 color palettes you see like throughout the movie, wherein the main character John Wick, is bathed in a certain color to express the intensity of the scene. If he is potentially fighting just a common thug, the color would be blue because that is the color that wherein he is the most in control, basically. But
Right.
later on, he ends up in a crowd, and all the guards in the nearby area are against him, so he is bathed in green because it's a bit unsure.
Mm-hmm.
And in a different scene, he is fighting some lower thugs, but also some of the thugs are actually other skilled assassins he is actually bathed in color purple, because that
Oh,
is to show that as that scene is actually it's something like green, but not as chaotic. It's just
it
unsure
has
of.
a bit of a warmer tone to it, a little bit of a sign of further danger.
Yeah, further they like anything could happen, but at least I know where the enemy is at, kind of thing. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
There
absolutely.
might be another surprise. And of course there's Red, wherein he's fighting somebody who is not necessarily to his level, but getting close to there, that could actually like pose as a real threat to him. And that type of scene can be seen. I worded this very poorly. That scene can be seen near the end of the movie, wherein he fights somebody who's actually a very skilled assassin.
That makes sense. The most formidable is going to be bathed in the most energetic and alarming form.
Yeah, exactly. There was actually like some some quote unquote movie critics actually like to talk about this in a comedic light, wherein if you see John Wick and he is bathed in a certain color, just run the other way. Just wait until the color changes to red, then you can fight him. There was this
Good to know.
like just change the light bulb at the front of their guns from white to just red. Just so John Wick is currently bathed in red.
Oh my
but
goodness.
but that's just how like color works in some like artistic aspects, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then of course color has been used in different ways. But anyway, regardless, let's move on to the next question. After
All right.
traveling the cosmos and working with different artists of different species and such, have you found any overlaps in the art style? Maybe some that even humans or other worlds share? Like something they all have in common, perhaps?
Hmm. Other worlds and other creatures sharing similar art styles. Well, I think that uh, it's an interesting way of putting it. I would say that what I create is more
Mm-hmm.
accepted. I think that people are more um, open to the idea of those mythical creatures, and I think that I have found other beings who sort of have a similar understanding of not everything just being your basic animal, but some things might having a heightened color, or a chimera of species, or something a little bit more dark and brooding, like you were saying earlier, with creatures who sort of hide their real form. I think I have found a lot of otherworldly beings who do sort of express themselves in similar ways, and I think that that is sort of one of the reasons that I've fallen so much in love with VTubing, is I feel like it's all more understood. I think that the work that I'm doing now is more respected by more people than in the previous world, where everything was feared and forbidden to an unhealthy degree. And I do find that there are some artists and creators who do like to play with heightened forms of color, or do appreciate that beauty in nature.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I feel like um due to the internet being due to the Terran internet does the way it is, just seeing how expressive more people are in the ways of artistry is actually, I
Yeah,
see, is
absolutely.
very healthy. Like it is very open, I should say.
Yeah, I
W-
think that more people are open to different ideas. And I think that VTubing has sort of allowed people to maybe express some forms or practice some illusion work that they normally would not feel comfortable doing. And this sort of gives them an outlet to do so.
Definitely. We've seen like some people create some art that isn't, well, that is and isn't to the generational. For example, we've seen some people doing some mm, Renaissance aesthetics, but using modern characters. And just seeing the
Yes,
combination of
yes.
the two, I find those, one, amazing, and two, very entertaining.
And it's amazing that you mentioned that. That's actually something I was visiting yesterday, as a matter of
Oh,
fact.
perfect.
The Renaissance work, the light play, the values, the shadows, the knowledge of color theory, and then combined with something more modern like an anime style, I think is something absolutely phenomenal. I was looking at some artists the other day on Twitter. I find that there's a wealth of inspiration there. People seem to be very open with sharing some phenomenal work. And I saw this beautiful, what would be Renaissance type piece, had you seen it anywhere else, of this girl descending a staircase as the window lights reflected over her and caught on her dress. But everything else about it had an anime flair. And if you looked at the background and only the background, you could think from another time period entirely.
Okay, I think I see what you mean. That sounds very interesting. Like, just like combining different elements and time periods together in a way that
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
captures like things that you don't really expect.
And sort of bringing that beauty that more people might not see as impressive. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who look at something like an anime juvenile. It doesn't have the depth. But bringing that Renaissance look to it and then adding something into it, you can't deny that there is a skill and a technique and a masterful study at play. And it's actually something that I'm very much taken inspiration to lately and want to start exploring in my own work more.
Yeah, definitely. There's just, well, just to say, there's so much inspiration that you can get just from looking outside. There's so much stuff, so much things that has like hidden beauty that people that like what we said previously, that has hidden beauty that we can combine with other beauties, like as we said earlier, the prisms, and as we said with the other thing, the light, combining the prism and the light to form something that's absolutely beautiful.
Exactly.
People can surely easily do it with like just simple tools, and I suppose that's just something people have to explore by themselves.
You have to be aware that it's there. You have to be aware that it's even an option, frankly.
Yes, exactly. You have to be able, yeah, of course you have to be open-minded. You can't just have like, this thing is not considered art because blank. I just
Although
find that
there
rather
are some
abhorrent.
pieces I do question from time to time.
That's fair. There are some, well, of course, beauty is on the eye of the beholder and all that. There's like different things we do find visually pleasing, some things that we just find boring, and other things which we think are just plain old whatevers. But
True, but I think
one
that there
one
is sorry?
so no, you were saying something?
I think there are unique traits to different pieces, even if you can't point them out at first.
Yeah, definitely. This is weird, but there are some times when like the power is out, and like somehow the point of view of what I'm looking at just frames so well with like being bathed in like the color of the candle that I have in my room, and it just looks very aesthetic, as what I can say. I find it strange that
I think aesthetic can sometimes be the only fitting word when we discuss these sort of things.
yes, because obviously it's my crap just laying around my room, but somehow the lighting just makes it look, well, aesthetic.
It's fine to use that word.
But yeah, it's just that I find it rather interesting, and like how our point of view of something just changes very easily.
Yeah. I think that sometimes when you do look at some of those aesthetic things, I think that sometimes it can bring emotions and feelings that you sort of don't really know how to put into words. Almost with the idea that it is something a little bit magical, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, what a lot of people have been saying is that magic to somebody can be science to someone else, but we
That's
can.
fair.
But the thing that I don't think they don't really say is that everything can be art. Everything can be visually aesthetic. There a funny example of this is actually when humans discovered the existence of black holes. They showed the picture showing the black hole on the backdrop of a star. But there was there was an article on the human internet, on the Terran internet, that said, okay, the black hole, we get it, it's an interesting photo, but it's not a very aesthetically pleasing photo because it's very blurry. I mean, that's not the point. But yes, it isn't aesthetically pleasing because it's literally just a blurry black dot in front of a star. But
You can't take what you see right there in front of you at face value as the extent of something's intrigue.
exactly. That's exactly what I mean. But yeah, I just found that very amusing when I discovered that that article online.
Yes,
What?
yes.
But yeah, that's just a way some people have merged science and artistry in a way that isn't meant to be done that way, but it's still something I have to admit is rather interesting the way people have viewed it.
Now,
Just
something
purely
that is
aesthetics.
interesting, as much as I do appreciate photography and photographers, there is something to be said about an artist who can paint a more realistic rendition of something in the cosmos that maybe the current Terran technology is not able to capture, and sort of giving people more of that sense of awe and not intrigue. What's the word I'm looking for? Sort of awe and amazement that isn't quite able to be seen yet by most creatures' eyes, but can be expressed through the visual medium.
Oh yeah, definitely because well, a lot of Terrans aren't aware of certain creatures living among them, but they are very much how should I say this? Very much rendered in an artistic light.
True,
For
true. And I think that a lot of people, they put so much value over what they can see right in front of them or capture themselves, and there's something to be said about a creative type who can use, as some others may have said before, science, and combine their knowledge of that with some knowledge of the magic of the universe and a bit of the creativity of art, and combine something that is actually more accurate to what you should be able to see.
oh yeah, definitely. Um, there was this one. How should I say this? There's this rising way of like showing artistry that I've seen online that I find is very interesting at the way it's done. It's using AI basically.
Mm.
They found ways that an AI could perhaps mimic the art style of a certain artist and use that in creating a new artwork. These artworks don't look great, obviously, because they're still learning, they're still getting the technologies of AI down. But seeing on how this is a possibility in the future is just rather interesting. We can actually like see new forms of art that humans have not thought of of creating.
True, that is
Hyper
true.
realistic images, yeah. Hyper
And
realistic
it,
images.
it is interesting to think about sometimes the sort of comparison between what different beings can create and what the AI can create, and somehow, in some cases, being very similar to what someone might see on a spiritual plane. Now, obviously, the AI hasn't experienced anything spiritual, but some of the deeper visualizations can kind of lean to a closer imagery in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But the thing, of course, of course, it is just a type um lines of code that's being used in creating an artwork. There is no real passion behind it unless consciousness becomes a thing. But that's a whole different conversation.
Then we can go into the rights of AI and the robot VTubers and all of those things.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic that's gonna take way too long. But yes, that's just something that people would eventually discover and create based around things that we've done in the past and using AI to mimic that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to quickly say that I am friends with some robot VTubers, and I do respect them greatly.
Yeah,
I feel like I need to put that out there.
I should probably also say that I have some robot friends. Please don't hack my arm. Who are very very good who are very good VTubers and very good content creators. So please support them when you see them. Okay. Well, going back, we've probably went on this tangent for way too long. Let's move to the next question.
Fair enough.
How exactly do you personally travel through worlds? Considering your wings and your nature as a celestial body, of course, do you use portals, or do you how do you say this? Or do you use a type of dimensional hopper? Or do you just fly to one place and you're actually just very old?
My age is definitely older than many. I have, for example, been able to experience some of the Renaissance type things. But I wouldn't say that I mainly use my wings just to travel from dimension to dimension. That would get boring quite quickly. Use that spellbook that I mentioned that I do keep on me to sort of dimensionally hop as well. The wings kind of keep me balanced and keep me stable. But I would say that spellwork is my main method for transportation in conjunction with my own spiritual self. Sorry? I'm hoping that made sense. Hi, friend, are you still there? I hope everything is going well. I'm not entirely sure what's going on the other side there. Hoping everyone is doing alright. I'm not sure if anybody can hear me at the moment. If anybody is in chat, could they let me know to make sure that I'm not alone? I feel like I've been alone many times on many different worlds. And it's a bit hard to tell sometimes, but I hope everybody is doing alright. Someone mentioned Cosmos. That is very interesting. I have checked it out a bit. I haven't had a chance to look at it lately. It is something I want to explore more. I'm not sure if any of my words are going through. I'm hoping everything is alright. I'm hoping that—
Oh my gosh, my mic was off. I don't know why. Okay, I was wondering what.
Good.
I think that the battery ran out.
Are you okay?
The battery ran out. I had to restart it. Okay, it works now.
Alright,
but
alright.
but
Hello
but
again.
but
Nice
but
to
sorry,
see you.
what were you saying earlier about how you travel, do you use a type of dimensional portal?
I was basically saying that it is part of my spell work as well as my spiritual entity form.
Ah,
So
okay,
it's a
okay,
bit
I see.
it's a bit of spells in conjunction as well as my spiritual self.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. But well, that makes sense in terms of you. I have like a couple friends who use something similar, but not in terms of spells, but in terms of technology, which is, I suppose, similar to what I use. But they infuse it with a type of magical energy, and I suppose that's just something that most creatures we have possess. Like a lot of
Sort of
VTubers
inserting
have something similar. Probably.
inserting your own magical work with some existing spells. I think that there's somebody who is mentioning something about a colored screen. Does everything look alright on your end?
Yeah, everything looks all right on my end.
Alright, I just want to be sure.
Okay, cool. Just checking. Yeah. But yeah, there's just it's interesting, like being able, like, of course, dimensional hopping is a thing that a lot of creatures have already learned to do.
I am
But
fairly surprised that there are so many. I really wasn't expecting many to be doing the same.
yeah, and they all use a type of, well, they either use magic, like sheer magic that exists within their beings, or they use a type of technology that can do this. And of course there are those cases that people use magic that use technology merged with magic, which is of course great.
Interesting. For me, I found that I feel the most comfortable with magic, but I have found the need, communication-wise, to use some forms of technology. I'm not the greatest at it sometimes, and sometimes I think that my magic can get in the way of it. But I have realized that there are some times where I do need to compromise. For example, I normally do most of my work in my spell book or in enchanted slate work, and I have found the need for some more stereotypical type tablets in many cases, especially if I need to find a good comparison and explain things to others.
Oh, definitely. As a way to I as a way to connect to something that they are more familiar with, like, let's say, computers, of course, human computers.
Exactly. If people want to try to get started with art, I can't exactly tell them to go out and find their own spellbook.
Yeah. Well, I suppose
But I can...
Grimoire. You were saying?
No, go ahead.
No, I was about to say that grimoires aren't exactly something you can find at any old bookstore. Grimoires, spell books, those kind of things.
Yes, and frankly, I think I've learned to be a little bit wary of some people. I have noticed there are some beings who pick up spell books and, not knowing that there are many different types, unleash some fairly dark entities into various worlds. So it would be irresponsible of me to tell them to go out and find a spellbook, because I don't know what kind of spellbook they're looking into. Therefore, I give them the technological equivalent.
Well, like what one of the viewers said earlier, we have one of the more notorious books, the Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Yes.
A legendary book.
I would be remiss if somebody that I was trying to teach came across one of those and felt that they could do lighthearted work to express themselves with no contradiction or consequence.
Yeah, basically, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of similar to what something I've heard a bit a while ago. It's been a while now. Forbidden knowledge is forbidden for a reason.
Yes, although magic in general was considered forbidden knowledge from that place I fell from. So, I think that in some situations there can be exceptions. But I do think that is something that I am more in tune with naturally and was more so held back from.
Exactly. It's Well, I suppose they have their own reasons, but that's more of a cultural thing than more of his history thing. We probably that will take a long time to like discuss the cultural implications of the first people you see being a-holes kind of thing. um,
There are some people who I will admit I would not trust magic with.
that's true. Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about is the reason why, for example, demons are usually funny enough. The word demonized is hilarious. The word how demons are demonized in plenty human cultures, but that's probably because they probably mistook like some fire because the perhaps one of the first like fire elementals that they discovered were fire elementals were a-holes and tried to like conquer them.
Sort of a catch-all label that might not fit.
Yeah, basically. Like well, this has been an issue on VTuber Twitter recently. Well, not recently, like a couple weeks now. But that wherein this person is an a-hole. You look like this person. Therefore, you are also an a-hole kind of thing.
Oh, that is not good.
Well, I suppose that's just a more historical issue now, since it seems to be happen all the freaking time now. But yeah, exactly like what the viewers just said. First contact is a very tricky thing, and that's probably what happened with that world you visited earlier. They just had like a bad time.
Strange colors, strange amalgamation, strange chimera. Why should we trust that?
Actually, thinking about it, they probably came across, for a lack of better words, an eldritch being. Because
that they may have had previous encounters that were maybe not so favorable.
yeah,
After all,
exactly.
I did find the spellbook there, so there must be something that has happened at some point.
Dun dun dun, connecting the dots.
I mean, it didn't fall out of the sky with me. It was
Yeah,
found
it was
there.
there.
I feel like there's something there that they may have encountered that may have made them fear things over many years. But, of course, no one will tell me.
No one will tell you forbidden knowledge and all that. Anyway, moving on to the next question. Seeing as you have an affinity for crystal and ice magic, I assume that have you ever used this type of magic in a type of defensive manner or a offensive manner? Considering the prejudice well, for one, starting off with the world that you were on, have you ever been attacked and you had to defend yourself using magic? Or perhaps it has something to do with Terra. Somebody was more hostile towards you in that kind of manner.
Try not to fight as much as I can. I definitely wouldn't fight with the creatures who didn't like magic. I don't think that showing that off would be the wisest choice.
Yeah,
but
that
I
makes
have
sense.
come into some situations where I have had to defend myself and work with some spirits and spell work in forms of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think many people are actually aware, but the wand that I use to create the work that I show people actually does have many forms. One being a defensive form that is more sword-like. And sort of using swordplay and a bit of ice and crystal work and a bit of help with some spiritual familiars, I have had situations where I have needed to defend myself from some quite unkind foes, some of which actually a little bit closer to me than I would like.
Okay, that makes sense. There is some prejudice against anthropomorphs on Terra, and of course magical creatures from that one other world. But yeah, people just attack things that they don't understand, like as we previously discussed. I suppose just something we can't really change easily, at least.
No, probably not, but maybe over time, people learning that things are not as much to be feared. I have approached some people who have said, I really don't understand this strange rainbow fox talking to me, but I don't sense that they're hostile, so I guess that similar creatures might not always be bad either.
Definitely, but of course of course, people have to watch out for some of those people who search for hostilities, basically looking for a fight, I should
Mhm.
say,
Ah, yes, yes, yes. I've
because we can't deny
definitely
those
had
people
my fair
exist.
share of that.
Oh, definitely. Knowing how the type of people who find anthropomorphs, like anthropomorphs, not only something they don't understand, but something they view as being, how should I say, something that should be eradicated. I can't really word it in other ways, but yeah, there are people
Yeah,
who do see that, which is kind of sad, honestly.
yeah, that is true. It has been looked unfavorably by quite a many people.
But that's just how the world. That's just how people are, unfortunately.
That is true. I have given some thought to working through some spell work that might help to alleviate that in some situations. Not that I feel the need to alleviate those situations, but I feel like there are some more powerful spells that I could look into in the future that might help alleviate people's hesitations at first.
Okay, I see. No, well, that makes sense. That we just sometimes we have to resort to magic, basically, and
There are
being
many
a
times we have to resort to magic, and for anyone else who does illusion work, I'm sure they're familiar.
yeah, that definitely. Well, unfortunately, there's just no going around that. Well, anyway, going on to the next question. Oh, we're on the home stretch now. Only 3 questions
All right,
left.
all right.
What was the first spell you learned, and what did you use it for?
First spell. Definitely wanting to start with something easy so as not to, uh, create worse portals than I already had. I would say probably just the levitation work of just working with still lives, turning things around in space just to get a better look with them. I'd say that's probably one of the easiest spells for anyone to sort of learn and work through.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense because viewing from human culture, we have actually plenty of, how should I say, plenty of examples wherein levitation is the very first thing that creature people with magical abilities learn. I literally just have I have 3 examples that just came to mind. One of which we have Harry Potter, Star vs. the Force of Evil, and The Witcher. All when there is a when there is a magical teacher in that show that taught the different students how to use magic, it's always done with levitation. I found I just realized that.
That might have been appreciated on my end, but no, I was a solo learner in that case.
Well, I suppose it's a good thing that you learn coincidentally, like like in the way that you're supposed to, like learning the first basic spell and such.
Yeah, it's more of a case of I've always had magic and I've been a magical being. It's more a matter of unlocking your potential, not really knowing that there's an ability there that you can have and can work with.
Yeah, definitely. There are some things that we just have to learn by ourselves and try to help us. We just have to help ourselves to get better. Well, a lot of things, honestly, at this point. But on the bright side, you are still you. Do you have any teachers to help you learn these things, like to help you learn magic at least, or are you still learning by
I have
yourself?
It's mostly self-taught. I thought you were going to mention art, and I was going to say I have had an art education, but in terms of magic, no. It's all been soul practice work, and it's soul not being SOUL, but soul is in single.
Ah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
I feel like I needed to point out the distinction there. No, that's
It's fine,
pretty
it's
much just all
fine.
been on my own.
Well,
But
at least.
again, that spellbook has been sort of that main guide for everything, and as I get more familiar with the work, and as I experiment more, there's sort of more things that come together.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's just how progression works for some people.
Yeah, you. Sorry?
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's just how some people work out, especially with things that they don't have a like very niche things, I should say.
Mm.
There are some people who okay, one of the things that I want to point out is, of course, no one taught me how to cosplay. Basically, I've expressed that I
Alright.
have cosplayed certain characters, like from like learning how to dress up as a certain character. I did not discover this until 3 years after I started doing my own thing. So, like, as I progressed, I learned how to become better at something without realizing that there's this whole community of people that actually do this thing that I'm doing.
Yes. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to find a way to do this. I have an idea to do this. Oh, wait, this is a thing?
Exactly.
Yes.
This is a thing people do? I'm not alone? Oh my gosh.
It's quite interesting, right? In terms of Terra, I found it amazing. I was like, hello, I understand the nature of the universe and the cosmos, and I want to learn more about this beauty and how I can explore more about my work with the stars, the moon, and the planets. And I spoke to somebody and I said, this is something that I have a lot of interest in that I'd like to explore. And they're like, oh, did you mean this group? And I said, oh, what does that group do? And they're like, oh, they appreciate the stars, the moon, and the planet. Like, wait, this is a thing? This
This is a
exists?
thing. I'm not alone.
And that's what I found, right, with so much in VTubing. There's so many celestial beings, and I'm like, wait, there's others?
Definitely.
more?
Well, to be fair, the how should I say this? When VTubing was first a thing, most humans, Terrans, only knew about the AI, Kizuna AI. Kizuna AI, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She was basically the first VTuber. She even coined the term VTuber. And
Yes, absolutely.
as she became more popular, more creatures, more people wanted to realize that holy crap, Terra is actually accepting of these weird ass creatures. We should probably like showcase ourselves. That's what I did. That's what you probably did.
Yeah,
And we just
actually, yeah, exactly. She was my first knowledge into like, oh, this is a thing I can do. I can show people art in a way that I can express this true form.
I can show my true form without having to hide it behind a human face. And of course, that's what a lot of people did. And now we're in today. We're in. I have this show to just showcase people's stories about how they became VTubers and how they came to what they are today. And now you're
Yes,
here. I'm
exactly.
here. And a lot of our viewers right now are also VTubers. It's just something. We said this word already
It's
way too many
interesting.
times, but beautiful.
I imagine Kizuna Ai sending out this message into the multiple universes, and all of these creatures, big and small, ferocious and friendly, all seeing these things at the same time and wondering how they can be part of this and how they can gather together.
Yeah. It's just amazing the way these things happen, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, moving on. Next question. Considering, okay, wait, this is the basically well, pretty much the last question. Considering you spend some time on their, oh wait, this is almost second last question. Considering you spend some time on their world, what was your daily life like on that world, the world of the anthropomorphs?
I would say very basic, very little technology. Not, huh. Saying hunting gathering sounds so bad, but essentially, basic farming, basic arts, just a very basic lifestyle, very cottage-like, if that makes sense. Honestly, so much of it just sounds like something out of your typical Terran storybook, right? especially with the fact that these are talking animals, it just a very basic lifestyle, towing fields, making blankets, sewing mittens, very homey and very cute, but not too much innovation.
I'm trying to remember, but there's this one group of people who is exactly like the way you described. I just forgot what they're called. Oh crap! Why can't I come up with that term now? It's exactly how I described it. These are the group of people that they don't hate technology. It's just that they don't use technology that often. They're like the least most technologically progressed people, but they are very community oriented.
It would not surprise me if some of the technology had the similar fears to the fears of magic either.
That actually makes a lot of sense. There it is! Thank you, Murdoch. Amish, that's a term. They're very Amish.
I don't know anything about the Terran groups, but the animal groups, I would say, were just very basic in that sense. Very forest-dwelling as well, which is probably one of the reasons that I still feel very comfortable with forests.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, okay, just to say, we in the place we're in, the Fire World, we do have forests. They are imported, but they do exist here to a certain extent.
They don't burn down in the Fire World?
I know it's called the Fire World, but that's just because that's like the most notable place. But there are like more regions than that, of course.
That's fair. I'm teasing.
Well, at least people now know that it's just called the Fire World. Doesn't mean it's all just fire. but yeah, the I have seen some solid how to say this, like being at peace in certain areas, like being by a lake, being by a fire. There are just some places where you feel most at peace with, that people just have to discover what that place for them is. I've seen plenty of people who don't have access to the forest like what you do, but they find the same relief being in, let's say, a library.
Yeah,
some of them even feel the same way just being in the bathroom for some reason. Those are the weird ones,
well,
but I can relate.
I don't know about that, but yes, I do think that every being sort of has their own place that makes them feel at their best.
Exactly. It can be
yes, I like that.
Yeah, tranquility, that's a term. Yeah. There's tranquility. Well, I suppose that's also the type of way that some humans have done to achieve the term nirvana, or at least try to achieve the term nirvana. Like wherein they go to a place where they can meditate.
I think that's on a very spiritual aspect, right?
Yeah. Or a type of enlightenment, like how they view the world, it changes. Just from being exposed to a certain place where you're at peace.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I suppose that's almost all of the questions. I do have one last question, of course, to ask. For the sake of meme culture,
oh boy.
Being a celestial fox, what does the celestial fox say?
You had to do this to me, huh?
Yeah.
Alright. The celestial fox says, when drawing, watch your tangents. And do I have to explain that? I feel like all I'm really good at is giving art advice, frankly. But essentially, watch your tangents.
Well, I have no idea what that means, but you can probably do some explanation to that, because I have no idea what that means either.
Alright, if you're drawing something, and you draw something behind you, and it lines up perfectly with the thing in front, to the point that you basically destroyed the third plane, and essentially messed up that visualization of the universe, you're creating tangents.
Fair enough. Okay, I see what you mean. Okay, that makes sense.
I feel like at this point I'm sort of known for calling that out. I'm sorry I don't have anything memeier for you.
That's fine.
But yes, I do think that is something I'm becoming known for a bit. And I think I do irritate a lot of others with that.
Don't worry about it. I'm sure they appreciate it on a different level that they don't realize it's lit, at least.
Yeah, I would say watch your tangents, in digital art, watch your layers.
Well, anyway, we let's see on if the viewers have any questions they want to ask earlier. If they have any burning questions that they want to ask. Let's see. Scrolling through
the
these.
irony of fire and ice together.
They just melt. Let's see. John David asked earlier if you weren't a how should I say this? If you weren't VTubing right now, what else would you be doing? Would it still be something art related?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think that VTubing is my best way of expressing to the masses what I do and trying to teach others. If I was not VTubing, I'd probably still be pursuing art in some way, whether that is pattern work or something collectible based. I will say that VTubing has created a huge opportunity in what I draw that I would have probably never been able to pursue in the same way. With the amount of people who are VTubers, I can serve them in ways that they can better express themselves as well. And I think that has created so many new different paths of exploration and creativity that I would have never had the opportunity to otherwise. So I'm extremely grateful for the VTubing community and how it lets me express certain styles.
Okay, that's good. So you, of course, you'd still be an artist and you'd still be showcasing your art, at least in one way or another, right?
Yeah, I would probably be working in some form of commercial aspect. But VTubing is what's allowing me to pursue the styles that I've admired for so long.
Okay, cool. Next question. Oh, by Wizard level 20. Oh, this is a question for me. Wizard, this is just Terra. What is Terra like? Well, Terra is literally just the scientific name for Earth, and it's the more accurate name for Earth because the term Earth just means ground. So by saying Terra, you mean, well, that particular world.
I feel like with elementals, it can get very confusing.
Especially
if you have an
when,
elemental whose affinity is Earth,
exactly.
then everyone's thinking of one certain planet. That doesn't quite make sense.
And just to add here, Earth elementals, don't fuck with them. They are way tougher than you think they are. They're made of ground. That's what you're standing on. Don't fuck with those guys.
I don't think I'd ever go against something Earth related with wings, other than the crystal work that I do.
Okay, next. Is that we can see, right? Okay, these things are more scientific questions. I'm not gonna answer that one. Flint, why are all of your questions just existential, man?
Oh, we would need more time than we have for those.
No, we would need way more time for this. I've actually been working on a whole different show, like based around these kind of questions, though. Okay, let's see. Okay. Dealing with this. Let's see. Any other questions? Okay, then. I think that's already all the questions that has been asked earlier. Any other questions? I don't think there is anymore.
I did see something in the chat that I would like to make note of that I did notice earlier.
Which one?
I am not a wolf.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like I need to emphasize that a bit, because it does seem to cause confusion. I am not a wolf, and I am not a dog. I am not a canine, I am closer to a vulpine.
That's a term?
Because
I need to look this up. I did not know the term vulpine was a thing.
you didn't know that foxes... Oh my goodness. Yes, foxes are vulpine. They are different than canine. We are more... I believe someone mentioned earlier, we are more the equivalent of a cat-dog hybrid, which, again, going back to that chimera thing that people freak out about so much. But yes, not a wolf, not a canine, a vulpine. Which, again, with the foxfires, we are very separate in that regard. And I also feel the need to mention, because people do keep saying dog or wolf, I also do not fetch.
Ah, Sag. Okay, what's your opinion on head pats then?
Head pats are fine. I think there are many animals who do appreciate head pats.
How about you? Do you appreciate head pats though?
I am fine with head pats. I will not deny that despite being a spiritual being, my fur does have a soft texture to it.
Fair enough. Okay, I had to look it up. Okay, I see what you mean now by the term vulpine. I genuinely thought that they both like originate from the same animal. Okay, that's my bad.
All good, all good. You learn something new every day, right?
Okay, here it is. Yeah, it's a different taxonomic rank which represents fox-like tribe. Blah 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 blah. Okay, wait. Technically, wait. Canine. Canine. Okay. Okay, I see. The vulpines branched off away from the wolves, but they do share a common ancestor. Okay, this is actually interesting. I need some time to look deeper into this. But they don't originate from wolves. Yeah, that's the one thing that we have to say. They're not canines. That's it. That's just basically we need to point out.
I feel it's a distinction to be made, and then even so, I think that spiritual entities probably don't follow perfectly into those sets of rules anyways.
Fair. Okay. La Volpe. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions here now. I think that's it. You have any last remarks you want to talk about to the people watching?
I think my main thing is that I will keep doing art. I will keep exploring many different ideas I have that I hope people are looking forward to. I do sort of want to work with a stronger spell work, as I said before, to maybe have a future appearance that is a bit more familiar to others. And I do want to keep teaching others and sort of exploring what I can do to help fellow VTubers.
Well, I do believe that is very admirable. And well, if there's nothing else we need to add here, this has been really fun. I hope you enjoyed your time on Burning Questions.
Yeah, this has been amazing, and thank you again for letting me sort of explore this work of collaboration. I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. I just want to help people get to know other creatures and beings' lore, and to help them understand like the deeper parts that many VTubers don't get to express based around where they're from and what their world is like.
Yeah, more VTubers helping VTubers in their own unique ways. I really like that.
Exactly. I just created a show to deviate from other VTuber shows, which aren't bad. They're just very standard, asking like, "What did you do? What was your first blah?" kind of thing.
Well, I think you have something very unique going on, and I'm excited for the future of it.
Definitely, I too am excited. Just a reminder to all the viewers. Next week we are probably going to be having Thorntail on to discuss his lizard lore. So if you guys want to see that, please tune in next week. My announcements will be on Twitter, and just to reprise the links to Starlight stuff will be here in the chat. There you go.
You're interested in seeing fun and colorful art.
If you want to see my stuff, exclamation point. Yes, Thorntail will probably be the guest next week if we can schedule the things properly. Okay,
I'm
next.
excited to see that. There's so much I want to learn about Thorntail. I'm looking forward to it.
He definitely doesn't like express his lore well enough. I really am interested also in his lore, which isn't being shown as much in his stream, sadly.
Accidentally freaked him out just by drawing Easter props, so I'm curious what happened there.
Definitely. Okay, well, now that my things are without further ado, who shall we raid? If we have enough viewers to raid, nah, it doesn't matter. Wow, a lot of people are online right now. Huh. Can I still raid? Even though I only have like... Yeah, that's fine. Well, anyway, everyone watching, thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for watching. And of course, thank you for your questions. Starlight, thank you for coming to this show. And everyone in the chat, I'll see you all next time with Thorntail stuff. So, bye everyone.